Okay folks, welcome back. This would be a video for box of 4 of my opening up a case of 1987 Topps Baseball Vending boxes in search of Bo Jackson. Video 3 was a big one. We finally got a Bo, so we did get one Bo. We also got a couple more Will Clarks, a couple more Wally Joyners. I think we got a Jose Canseco too, but we've been doing pretty good. It was good to finally see a Bo. So I've got this box ready. Let's start going through them and see what we got. Chris Brown, Brad Havens, Mike Loyne, Moose Haas, Jamie Quirk, Ken Oberkfell, Mike Fitzgerald, Pat Dotson, Rick Anderson, Doyle Anderson. Mariners leaders, Jim Deshaies, Jim Rice All-Star, Dennis Eckersley, Gerald Perry, Sean Dunston, Jack Howell, Billy Bean, Pete Ladd, Buddy Bell, Bill Swift, Darryl Motley. Padres leaders, Ron Robinson, Bill Russell, Paul Molitor. I think that's the first Molitor I've seen in a while. Alan Trammell, Mike Witt. Angels leaders, Jesse Barfield, Robin Yount, Steve Farr, George Bell All-Star, Keith Moreland, Mike Brown, Steve Balboni, Tony Bernazard, Andy McGaffigan, Dave Stewart. Checklist, Davey Concepcion, Rod Scurry, Sparky Anderson, Ed Lynch, Mike Diaz, Jeff Reardon, Craig Reynolds. Joe Hesketh, Ken Landra. Hey, another Bo, that's 2. Steve Lake, Rick Sutcliffe, Ruben Sierra, Don Mattingly All-Star, Kirby Puckett All-Star, Wallace Johnson, Rupert Jones, Don Baylor, Terry Poole, Dave Henderson, Ray Searage, Dave LaPointe. What's on the back of Dave LaPointe? Dale Swaim, Pedro Guerrero, Mike Schmidt All-Star, Luis Aquino, Charlie Hudson, Reggie Jackson, Ricky Horton, Glenn Hoffman, Teddy Higuera All-Star, Craig Nettles, John Miserock, Tito Landrum, Glenn Wilson, Lance Parrish, Rich Yett, Dick Schofield, Cecil Fielder, Dan Petrie, Todd Worrell, Ed Correa. Kurt Stillwell, Jim Pankovitz, Mike Young, Roger McDowell, Dickie Thon, John Moses, Terry Mulholland, Dave Palmer, Jose Rio, Keith Hernandez All-Star, Scott Sanderson, Kurt Wilkerson, Ken Dixon, Mark Gubiza, Todd Worrell Record Breaker, Mike Birkbeck, Mike Woodard, Enos Cabell, Rafael Ramirez, Andre Dawson, Frank Williams, Steve Firovid, Alex Trevino, John Candelaria, Ozzie Smith, Mike Aldretti, Lamar Hoyt, Dickie Knowles, Larry Parrish, Danny Cox, Gary Ward, Ricky Wright, Jim Beattie, Ron Oster, Greg Minton, Joaquin Andujar, Donnie Hill, Chris Welsh, Reed Nichols, Bryn Smith, Bob Ojeda, Lou Whitaker, Sammy Khalifa, Phil Garner, Jerry Royce. Hey, Steve Carlton, haven't seen one of those in a little bit. Al Pulido, Jeff Lottie, George Bamberger, Jerry Royster. Kent Herbeck was probably one of the most underrated players of the 80s. Danny Tartabull, Rookie Cup. I'm a Phillies fan, so I don't like Danny Tartabull one bit. Indians leaders, Pat Tabler, Garth Orge, Juan Nieves, Craig McMurtry. Gary Reedus, Rob Woodward, Gary Carter, Ryan Sandberg, Kent Tekulve, Mike Trio, Terry Kennedy, Dave Winfield, Bud Black, Dave Leeper, Frank DePino, Scott Bankhead, Oral Hershiser, Shane Raleigh, Corey Snyder, Rookie Cup, it's a nice card, Domingo Ramos, Dwayne Ward, John Kruk, Rick Manning, Tony Bernazard All-Star, Bruce Sutter, Bob Shirley, Jim Rice, Rich Kedman, Luis Aguayo, throwing things all over the place here, Ken Phelps, Keith Atherton, Greg Gross, Ed Hearn, Phil Bradley, Len Dykstra, Bobby Witt. His son's probably the most famous one in the family now. Tom Nieto, Stan Javier, Tim Flannery, Bill Scherer, Tom Foley, Marvell Wynn, Jeffrey Leonard, Harold Baines, Craig Lefferts, Ed Nunez, Danny Darwin, Luis Quinones, Mike the Hitman Easler, Cal Ripken All-Star, Steve Trout, Jeff Sellers, Dennis Oil Can Boyd, Darrell Evans, Mark Eichhorn, Fernando Valenzuela All-Star, Manny Trio, Bill Wegman, Kirby Puckett, Don Carmen, Lee Hamaker, Brian Olkers, Jim Morrison, that is not the Lizard King, Mookie Wilson, Phillies leaders, Ron Karkovice, Gary Matthews, Dan Plesac, Rob Kearney, Bob James, White Sox leaders, Rob Murphy, Dave Smith, Tom Seaver, haven't seen a Seaver in a little bit, Chris Bozio, Ray Quinones, Bob Dernier, Dave Gumpert, Jim Sundberg, Roger Clemens, Red Sox leaders, Bobby Bell, Mike Krukow, Ray Knight, Bruce Ruffin. He replaced Steve Carlin in the Phillies rotation. Luis Salazar, Jim Dwyer, Pat Perry, Joe Sambito, Tim Hewlett, Jeff Hamilton, Billy Joe Rubidoux, Checklist, Jim Presley, Ray Fontenot. There's a Mark McGuire. It's a nice card. Darryl Strawberry All-Star, Jim Slayton, Rob Deere, Doug DeCentes, Harry Spillman, Barry Jones with that old school Pirates cap, Larry Anderson, Milt Thompson, Frank Wills, Glenn Braggs. Tony La Russa, Kurt Gibson, Melody Milner, Barry Larkin, Jim Acker, Dan Schatzeder. Astros leaders, Teddy Higuera, Mariana Duncan, Wade Boggs All-Star, Don Ossie, Kurt Ford, Juan Espino, Ron Darling, Ron Renicky, Gary Carter All-Star, Tom Candiotti, Randy Myers, Junior Ortiz, Vida Blue, Tim Pisnarski, Bill Dawley, Fernando, Mets leaders, Jim Deshays, Record Breaker, Tony Gwynn, Carney Lansford, and somebody's behind Carney Lansford. Who we got? Bob Tewksbury, John Shelby, Brett Saberhagen, Brian Diet, Scott Bradley, Darnell Colts, Reds leaders with Pete, Jerry Rumfrey, Bob McClure, Doug Drabeck, Jose Uribe, Checklist, Jeff Heron, Kevin Romine, Tony Pena. He had the best catching stance. He had one leg out and the other one crouched. It's pretty cool. Bob Forsch, Cal Daniels, Carmelo Martinez, Darrell Porter, Mark Huisman, Rudy Law, Ken Daly, Pat Sheridan, Tony Gwynn, Top Peshorek, Roberto Clemente, turn back the clock, a little off-center there. Royals leaders with George Brett, Mitch Webster, Jose Cruz, Mickey Brantley, Jose Guzman, Mark Salas, Tim Leary, Donnie Baseball. I like Donnie Baseballs. George Orta, Jamie Moyer, Ed Olwine, Eddie Murray, Andre Thornton, Roger Clemens, Record Breaker, Dick Williams, Ron Davis, Lee Guterman, Brian Clutterbuck, Mike Smithson, Jay Howell, Bill Madlock, John Russell, Clint Hurdle, Lance McCullers. Son's a good pitcher for the Astros. I think he's hurt now. Floyd Bannister, Will Clark rookie. Always happy to see those. Cal Ripken, Mark Davis. Wade Boggs, Mike Mason, Gary Gaddy, Kevin Mitchell, Floyd Yeomans, Larry McWilliams, Rick Honeycutt, Terry Francona, Steve Lyons, John Felsky, Fred Lynn, Ernie Riles, Steve Bedrosian, Tom Brookins, Mark Portugal, Julio Franco, Bill Campbell, Tom Brunansky, Chuck Finley, Mark Thurmond, Tim Raines, Ozzie Guillen, Johnny Ray, Tommy John, Floyd Rayford, Bill Schroeder, George Hendrick, Steve Buechele, Ed Woonja, Hal Lanier, Dusty Baker, Pete, nice Pete Rose, Von Hayes, Wayne Tolleson, Jose De Leon, Chuck Tanner, Ben Ogilvie, Jerry Hairston, Mike Greenwell. Greenwell was a good player for a little bit. Lonnie Smith, Rafael Belliard, Charlie Huff. Charlie Huff is probably 42 here. He looks like he's about 60. John Robinson, Al Newman, Jeff Stone, Rob Wilfong, Sammy Stewart, Alfredo Griffin. Bobby Thigpen, Bobby Valentine, Tim Tuffle, Cecilio Guante, Rick Mahler, Bill Caudle. Somebody's in the back here. Who's behind that? Juan Berenger. Carl Besk, Scott Fletcher, Bob Stanley, Kirk McCaskill, Dave Johnson, Whitey Herzog, Bob Boone, Ron Shepard. Reggie, turn back the clock. BJ Surhoff, Future Stars, not a bad card. Jose Oquendo, Larry Sheets, Al Nipper, Zane Smith, Rangers leaders, Jim Leland, Vance Law, Robbie Thompson, Rookie Cup, Lee Smith, Reggie Williams, Burt Blyleven, Jay Tibbs, Frank White, Ron Reynolds, Tim Laudner, Glenn Davis, Greg Pryor, Dwayne Murphy. A couple flipped over here. Todd Worrell, Rookie Cup. He's a good closer for a while. Ron Kittle, Tom Browning. I think he's dead, R.I.P. Chris Cotaroli, John Tudor, Dan Villardello, Julio Cruz, Bob Rogers, Rick Dempsey, Dale Murphy, Don Sutton. There's a Ron Say on the back there. Cardinals leaders, Bob Kipper, Bob Sebra, Kevin Bass, Roy Smalley, Willie Hernandez. A's leaders, Marty Barrett, Ernie Witt, Brian Fisher, Dave Righetti, record breakers. Bill Goerkson, Hubie Brooks, hey, Mike Schmidt, like Mike Schmitz, Brett Butler, Wally Joyner, another Rookie Cup. So I think that's the series, right? There's usually a Brett Butler before the Wally Joyner. Jim Fregosi, Dwight Lowry, Dave Parker. Dave Parker is criminally underrated. The guy should totally be in the Hall of Fame. Mark Langston, Andy Allenson, Mike Lacoste, Billy Sample, Jimmy Key, Glenn Hubbard, Carlton Fisk, Jeff Reed, Jeff Dedman, Mike Davis, Tom Hume, Dave Righetti, All-Star, Bill Kruger, Rafael Santana, R.J. Reynolds. Okay, Brian Downing, Gary Templeton, Otis Smith, Tom Wallace, Juan Agosto, Dwight Gooden, Jeff Calhoun, Mickey Tettleton, Terry Forster, Dwight Evans, Denny Martinez, Dennis Lamp, Jackie Gutierrez, Tom Waddell, Steve Crawford, Vince Coleman, Damaso Garcia, Buddy Biancalana, Bob Walk, Mitchie Hatcher, Keith Hernandez, Pirates leaders, Tracy Jones, Gene Nelson, Jerry Willard, Danny Gladden, Mike Bodiger, Blue Jays leaders, Gene Mouch, Denny Walling, Dan Pasqua, Jeff Russell, Mike Heath, Joe Orsolak, Dave Collins, hey, George Brett, Rich Gossage, Expos leaders, Tony Walker, Don Slott, and Dave Dravecki. So, not a bad box. We got our second bow. This one looks pretty good. Might be a little off center, I can't tell, but good to get another bow. So, we are 2 for 4. We are batting 500, which isn't bad as far as finding bows in these boxes. So, that's box 4. Tune in soon for box 5. Thanks.